Hello, everybody. So, I am really excited to dive into what we are here to talk about today. And actually, this was inspired. I just want to say this podcast episode was inspired by a guy that I follow on social media. His name is Madi Woodard, and he puts out really great content for entrepreneurs. And I love following his page. And he posted this reel the other day. And I just was like, yes, 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 yes. All the yes to it. So go follow him because he does have phenomenal content. But what his reel was about was this idea that I actually hear from a lot of people who are like either thinking about working with me or who are thinking about building businesses in the online space. They'll be like, well, but how am I going to succeed? Because, the market is so saturated. And what he says in this reel is, no, he says the bottom of the market is saturated. The people who are in and out, who come and go, the people who are not willing to invest the time, money, the energy, who say they want entrepreneurship, but really they just like want the result of entrepreneurship or successful online coaching or consulting or whatever, but they're not actually willing to do what it takes. And he was talking about how the top of the market is never saturated. It's always going to be a blue ocean up there. And he was actually giving the example of like Beyonce. He was like, Beyonce she doesn't suffer. She doesn't not make it because there's a lot of people who have a dream of becoming a famous singer. And it was such a great analogy. And the whole piece of content, it was just a reel. So it was short, but it was so, so, so true. And I actually talk about this quite a bit on the podcast and with potential clients and with clients and all of that. And I refer to it as the 95% rule, right? So the 5% and the 95%, the 5% rule, whole podcast episode on it. So I have this belief that only 5% of people who say they want to do something extraordinary will actually do it, right? For the same reasons this guy on Instagram, Madi, was talking about, right? Most people are not going to be willing to do what it takes, the discipline, the time, the commitment, the money, the energy, the visibility, like whatever it is, right? Because all of these things hold coaches back, I would say, pretty substantially. And so I wanted to just address it on the podcast today because I think it's one of those things, this like idea of market saturation that is keeping way too many people from actually like building this business that they want to build for themselves. And it's unnecessary, right? It's just unnecessary because the thing about the 5% rule is, and from the way that he was saying it, the thing about the top of the market versus the bottom of the market is it's all a decision we get to make, right? We all get to decide, and we decide in every day, in every moment. And that is the truth, right? And so I actually wanted to read another piece of his content to you guys. And then I'll share, more of my own thoughts. And so he wrote this another great piece of content where he says there are two types of entrepreneurs. The vast majority of them are called excuse makers, and the smaller, more impactful group of them are called wayfinders. Excuse makers can't start their business until they have enough money. Wayfinders leverage grants, loans, credit, partnerships, and even launch with pre-orders to make up for the lack of capital. Excuse makers never have enough time to work on their business. Wayfinders audit their time and cut out unnecessary habits. They even learn how to multitask, for example, listening to a podcast while commuting to work. Excuse makers probably stopped reading on the last slide. This is a carousel. Wayfinders know that I keep some gems stashed at the end of my carousel, which I just thought was really funny, right? Don't let a perceived lack of resources prevent you from being resourceful. Okay. So one of the mentors that I work with says there are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states, right? And it's just another way. And he says at the end here, always remember, you can figure out everything, right? And that is the truth. But again, 95%, that bottom of the market where it is very loud, it's very noisy. It feels like you're in like a super busy shopping mall or like something like that is what it feels like. Yeah, that's saturated, right? That's not the place that you want to hang out. And the way to get out of that, right? Actually, I love that. I love that image that just gave me, like being in a packed shoulder to shoulder shopping mall, and where like everyone's on the bottom floor, but then at like the top, like in the court or whatever at the top, it's like open and it's free flowing, and like there's only a couple people up there. The way to get from that bottom of the market, where it is very loud, very saturated, where 95% of coaches and entrepreneurs are actually going to end up, to the top, is in your moment to moment decisions, right? And I just want to say, I work with coaches at all levels. I have coaches who are making 500K plus a year. In my programs, I have coaches who are in the low multiple six figures, right at the six-figure mark. And then a lot of coaches, when they first start working with me in my marketing intensive, they are brand new. They haven't maybe had paying clients before, or they've had like some, but it's not been very consistent. And I just want to say that, like, especially when I have, people joining my groups and my webinars and things like that, what we see a lot is that most of them don't really have paying clients, right? And in the same vein, right? So we'll ask typically like 3 questions when people come into my Facebook group. The first one is like kind of asking about the vision for the business, what they want to achieve. The second one's kind of asking about what their challenges are. And the third one's asking if they're looking for support. And what's so interesting to me is that pretty much, maybe not 95% of the time and 5%, but it's a pretty high percentage. The same people who will say, I don't have any paying clients, I'm struggling to make money, I'm struggling to get my business off the ground or whatever, will answer no to the "are you looking for support" question, right? Because they might, they might not give us any reason, but it might just be, a lot of the time it's like fear about money and investing. And it's just thinking in a way that is not the way of an entrepreneur. And I wanted to have this conversation today because if you are doing this to yourself, there's a very easy way to move through it. It's literally starting to think and act differently in the moment to moment when fears arise, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're kind of like, okay, well, I don't have enough clients, or I don't have any clients, or I don't know how to get clients, or my income's been really inconsistent. Well, the only person that can change that, and the only person keeping you from having that, is you, right? And it's in those moment to moment decisions, right? So many coaches will say things like, oh, it's a bad time for me to start this, right? I've got little kids at home, or I have a full-time job, or I've got all this stuff coming up, right? No, that's not really an excuse. If you listen to last week's episode with Tabitha, who had a $34,000 launch in her brand new online coaching business while raising 8 children, that's not legit. And, it's never a timing thing. I mean, maybe if you have like a major surgery or something like that coming up, the timing is never off, right? And it's never the perfect time. It's all the same stuff that if you were going to coach like a weight loss coaching client, right? They're going to present all of these same kind of faulty belief systems and thought patterns to you as well. And you've got to be willing to address those within yourself before you're going to really be able to address those within other people. And what we have to remember is that there's a whole podcast episode on this as well. We create a mirror effect for ourselves in our business. So the thoughts we're having, the excuses we're making for ourselves, whether it's, keeping us in that bottom of the market, that 95% versus the 5%, or we're just kind of coming up with those excuses, like he was talking about the excuse makers versus the wayfinders, then it's really just mirroring the fear and the thought processes of the people who are reaching out to you, or prospective clients, or even clients who are not getting the results they want for themselves because they continuously believe things that aren't serving them, that aren't moving them toward the goal. So if you find yourself doing that, you get to cut that out, and you can do it literally in the moment by changing your thought process and taking different actions from what you might be inclined. Well, whether it's like, oh, I'll start this business, or oh, I'll get support, or oh, I'll take action, but I'll do it after, after the summer when the kids are back in school or whatever. It's like, I always say, if someone wants to lose weight, if they're going to be successful, they do it today. They do it now, right? It's the next bite of food that they eat that changes everything. And it's the same thing with your business. So I'm recording this podcast on June 30th, 2022. And if you are maybe having that thought to yourself, right? Oh, well, when the kids go back to school and blah, 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 right? Whatever the case may be is, and I'll wait until August, or I'll wait until September. No, post the content today. Do something to move yourself forward today and tomorrow and the next day, because people who are going to be at the top of the market, people who are going to be in that 5%, are people who take action immediately, who actively work to change their thought processes and follow through on what they want their new belief system and what they want their new thought process to be right away. They don't put things off, right? And a lot of the time, I'll see people who are going to be at that bottom of the market, like very saturated place. So they're like in and out of their business. They get into their business and then they take breaks, or they're like, yes, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to join this program or whatever. And then they're like, oh, well, I need to just start later, or, oh, but this came up in life circumstances and now it's not a good time, right? It's all the same stuff that comes up for so many people who want to be successful entrepreneurs and so many people who want to be coaches. And it's going to feel real, right? You're going to think, when you think about these like excuses and things like that, or the circumstances that are coming up, you're going to think it's unique to you. You're going to think it's valid. You're going to think it's legit. And here's the thing is, we all have circumstances in our lives. It's just how we choose to show up every day. It's how we choose to respond to them. And again, that response and the way that we think about it is what will ultimately separate the bottom of the market from the top of the market. I think also one thing that's really important, as I kind of do this like truth telling for coaches, is being in integrity, right? Following through on your word. If you commit to something with someone, following through with it, not backing out, not changing timelines, not convincing yourself that, it's okay to do something different. Because when you make a decision, especially like when you make a decision out of a place of desire, right? So like if you're, let's say you're a weight loss coach, right? I just use an example because it's one everyone can relate to, because you kind of get what that looks like, right? Let's say you're a weight loss coach and you have a client and they want to lose 50 pounds and they, commit to you and your program. And they're like, yes, we're starting on July 1st. And then June 30th, they message you and they're like, hey, I've got all this stuff going on. Can we start in September when the kids are back in school instead? Right? That's an example. And I share that example because you can see that and you can relate to it from a client perspective. But I see this with coaches all the time, with entrepreneurs all the time. And that is one of the fastest ways to hang out in that saturated space in the market, right? Is having those types of thought processes. And I think what happens often is that we have this like desire, we have this drive, we take this inspired action, or we make commitments from a place of inspiration and motivation. And oh my gosh, I'm finally going to do this. But then reality hits, right? And for some people, like you could even think about this as like buyer's remorse. So, but whether you bought or not, what happens is whether you have buyer's remorse or you drop your integrity and back out of a commitment you made, maybe it's just to yourself, right? You drop the integrity to yourself for how you said you were going to show up, or maybe you committed to something and then you're trying to like change dates and back out and all of that stuff. You've allowed fear to get the best of you, right? That's what that ultimately is. Because here's the thing is, I've talked about this on the podcast a million times. Fear is always going to be there, especially when you're doing something powerful for your life, when you're doing something new and different. No one creates a freedom that online businesses can provide. Like I'm getting ready to go to London on Saturday. I have a big 40th birthday celebration. I'm going to see Pearl Jam 2 nights in a row. And I'm going to Costa Rica for a month. And I've lived in other countries for months and months at a time and have been able to build a multiple $1 million business where I get to do cool things all the time. That doesn't come without navigating fear. And even if maybe you're like, hey, I just want to like make 8,000 a month or 10,000 a month. Guess what? Same thing. The same process is required to get your business off the ground and going and moving toward replacing your day job income or moving toward your first 6 figures. The same things, the same level of commitment and integrity and responsibility and personal accountability are required to get you from wherever you are now to whatever the initial goal is, as is required for me to get into the multiple millions, right? And so this is really important because the fear is going to come up. Extraordinary things aren't just like fear-free and easy and whatever. They are things that require you to feel the fear and do it anyway, as the cliche says, right? So if you are one of those people who says yes to something, again, whether it's with another person, like a coach or some like a business coach, like what I am, or you're just saying yes to yourself, and then the fear creeps up, you get the regret, you get the remorse, you get all of the doubt, and then you allow yourself to back out. Again, fastest way to the bottom of the market, fastest way to be part of that 95%. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, that is not why you decided decided you wanted to build and grow a business. I know if you're watching me stream this into my Facebook group, that's not why you're here, right? But 95% of coaches are going to make those choices that are aligned with that bottom versus the top. And I think one of the big things that makes a difference is really just honing your ability to think and to make decisions like an entrepreneur, right? Like a leader, like a successful coach, even if you're just at the beginning, because the average person who is not an entrepreneur, who is not building a business, who is not earning extraordinary money, they think very differently, right? Like I've had this kind of theme that I've talked about a lot lately, especially like with my clients and some on the podcast and just in content I've been creating, is that really successful people, the top 5%, the top of the market, people in that space think differently. They just do. They just think differently, right? And they don't allow fear to get the best of them. It doesn't mean it doesn't come up, but it doesn't make us back down, right? It doesn't make us back out of our decisions and our commitments, whether again, that's to ourselves or to someone else, probably a combination of both, right? And the thing is, hopefully I'm like out of breath because I'm like so excited to talk about this because I feel so passionate about it, is that you're not going to make it if you don't work through these things. If you don't start to think differently, show up differently, act differently, and put your target on that 5% on the top of the market, not that bottom of the market where it is going to be always so loud and crowded in that awful busy shopping mall. I don't like being in malls anyway, but like awful busy. It's got like the worst stores. And just like fried food everywhere. It just smells like fried food. And it's like people all over the place. Like you don't want to be there, right? You want to be at that place that's the top. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this, you guys, is because it's all a decision. It's just a decision you get to make. And I shouldn't say decision as in singular, I should say decisions, right? Because it's the decisions that we are making all day, every day that change the game for us, that determine the trajectory of our life, our business, our finances, our entire future. Every single day, you are determining what your future is going to look like. And I think the sooner we can accept that. And here's the thing is like, if this conversation or something else I've said, or, something else comes up for you and you're like, you know what, that's not for me. That's cool, right? You don't have to do this. You don't have to build a coaching business. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. There's no judgment against it. It's not to say like one's better and one's worse, but it's like, just be real and honest with yourself, because that really crowded space, it's a sucky place to be in where you feel like you're not getting traction and you never have enough money and you're in these painful cycles and you keep saying you want more, but you don't do anything about it. It's like the person who says they want to lose weight and then they keep drinking soda and they keep eating pizza 3 times a week and they keep hitting snooze and they never make it to the gym. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself and your business. Your entire life, your entire reality, your entire future can look different, but it has to start with the decisions that you make today. And here's the thing is, I'm not perfect with it either. There's things that I would like to change. There's things that would probably take me from earning where I earn now to that next level that I desire to reach. And so I'm working on those things too. It's like fitness, like your growth and your commitment to being at the top and to creating extraordinary results in your business. There's never a destination that you reach. I mean, I guess unless you want to like sell your business or something like that, but it's never a destination, just like fitness. It's a constant commitment to the extraordinary. Okay. So I'm very passionate about this. I hope it was helpful. And I just want to tell the truth. I want to tell it like it is, because you can't be half in, half out. You can't be mirroring the behaviors of your own most frustrating clients. You can't be constantly changing when you're getting started and moving your timelines and thinking like people who are not successful entrepreneurs, right? Like making those excuses. Remember, Madi says the excuse makers versus the wayfinders. You get to decide, you get to commit. Are you going to be an excuse maker? Are you going to be a wayfinder? Are you going to be at the bottom of the market where it's saturated in that busy, crowded, smelly mall? Are you going to be at the top of the market? Are you going to be in that 95% who say they want but never do? Or are you going to be in the 5% who actually create the extraordinary? Because the choice is yours, my friends. And I would love for you to let me know how this sits. And you can do so by just contacting me on social media. You can send me an email, nicole@convertauthentically.com, or you can go ahead and jump into my free Facebook group, which is Authentic Conversion, Organic Six-Figure Fitness Business. And I will see you, my friends, in the next episode.